college football storylines, you're getting now to week 9, almost into week 10. You talked about it. 90 days. All this is we're talking next year. National championship, all those type of things. So we have to dive into it, and let's start with our early CFP projections. We've seen a lot of these teams. I'm gonna list off the undefeated teams right now that are left: Ohio State, OU, Oklahoma, Florida State, Michigan, Georgia, and Washington. All are undefeated. The one-loss teams are Bama, Texas, Penn State, Oregon, Ole Miss, Oregon State, Utah. I'll throw us into that mix at North Carolina. You're looking at this right now, and we've documented it. We've talked about this week after week, especially in the Pac-12. A lot of these teams are going to knock each other out. So, Utah plays Oregon today. So we're going to see that one. Some of these teams, like the Texans, they got maybe an easier game at BYU, but Texas has been going back and forth. And now that Quinn Ewers is out, all of a sudden that changes how you look at things. So talk to me. We're coming into that time. Everybody's starting to talk about the CFP. What are your early projections, and what do you think of these teams that we still have left?
So, if I was to put a Final Four right now, like this first 4 ranking, I'd probably go Washington 4, Ohio State 3, Michigan 2, Georgia 1. I feel like that's how they're going to go. But Michigan, Ohio State, obviously one of those teams is going to get pushed out. If Washington runs the table, you can make an argument for them at 1, right, because that is such a tough schedule. Michigan, if they beat Penn State and Ohio State the way they've been playing this year, you can make an argument for them at 1. If Georgia runs the table here, there's an argument for them at 1. I feel like this is why I hate 4 this year, because there's a potential for 5 conferences to have an undefeated champion.
Yep. And
one of them is going to get pushed out. And I have a feeling that it would be Oklahoma.
Wow. Yep. Okay.
Because, it took a 2-point conversion to hold on against UCF, or failed 2-point conversion to hold on against UCF. Texas, if they beat them twice, might push them over the edge. And it depends how people feel about Florida State's schedule. I feel like it's down to those 2. Washington, Georgia, Michigan, or Ohio State, if those 3 conferences have an undefeated champ, they're in. No questions asked, no doubt about it. But then with Oklahoma and Florida State, it comes down to that schedule. Do you favor Texas and a little bit of a weaker Big 12 schedule compared to what Texas is going through? Or do you like the Florida State schedule better with Clemson that looks really not that good this year, and it took overtime to beat them? It would cap off if it ends up you guys versus them in the ACC title game. That would be a big feather in the cap if they can win that one, because you guys are still a good team. You're highly ranked. I would lean Florida State, though.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. At the end of the day, my deal with Washington is just that I just don't think that they can get out of the year without a loss. And that then changes things for me. Because my 4 is Florida State, my 3 is Georgia, my 2 is OU, and my 1 is Michigan. And the reason why I say OU is because I look at that remaining schedule. You got 5-2 Kansas today. You got 5-2 Oklahoma State, who's been playing amazing behind Ollie Gordon. You got 4-3 West Virginia, that this year is actually a force. This year they put up numbers. Then BYU's 5-2, and then TCU's 4-4. All that before the Big 12 championship, where they potentially play Texas again. And then if all that combined, I think that's going to push them up. If they can stay undefeated, Dylan Gabriel potentially moves up in that Heisman race. You guys are far and away number 1. And Kate said some people are saying Michigan should be seeded. This is ridiculous. This is not you're guilty until proven innocent. You are innocent until proven guilty in this state.
Yeah.
And this is the only thing that seems to be able to potentially unseat Michigan, because their play on the field is unquestionable.
So to counter that, I was I mean, I've been looking at this pretty much 24/7 since it came out. There was one article directly related to the CFP and how they would look at this. If they follow the rule of their law, they only look at what's on the field.
Yep.
You don't look at the sign stealing allegations. You don't look at off the field issues. You look strictly at what's on the field. Yep. And if you look strictly at what's on the field, the lowest Michigan can be is 2 currently. Yep. I put Georgia 1 just because I still have that say, like, to be the man, you got to beat the man, right? So right. Georgia still takes that number 1 spot for me, but I feel like there's a very strong argument for Michigan to be number 1 right now.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the way that they're playing, I mean, you just look at, and also, like I said, with OU, with the remaining schedule, you don't have a harder schedule than Michigan going down the stretch. You know what I mean? A Maryland team, Penn State, Ohio State, and then the Big Ten championship, you know, barring anything happening. That's one of the tough.
Wisconsin for that.
Right. That's one of the tougher schedules that you have. And shout out to Wisconsin. Phil Longo, we still miss you, buddy. But but that, I mean, that is going to be one of the toughest battles going through. Personally, maybe this is wishful thinking, but I do think Georgia's going to at least take 1 loss, be it maybe in the regular season, Missouri, Florida today, I don't know, or in that SEC championship. But I don't think that stops him because of what you said. To be the man, you got to beat the man, and it's going to bring that matchup between you guys.
I actually think if Georgia loses that SEC title game, we might actually see the first playoff without the SEC involved.
What?
You think about it. If Washington runs the table, they're in. If Michigan or Ohio State runs the table, they're in. Are you going to put a 1-loss Alabama SEC champ or a 1-loss Georgia SEC runner-up over a potentially undefeated Big 12 champ, potentially undefeated ACC champ?
Right. Huh.
If there's 4 undefeated champs, they're going.
And look, let's be honest about this. Every year we contend with this one phrase. It just means more in the SEC. Respect. The talent per capita each year is normally a little bit head and shoulders above most conferences, and still like kind of just a little bit over, you know, a Big Ten. But let's be honest this year. Let's look at a Kentucky. Let's look at a 2-loss LSU. Ole Miss has 1 loss, but still, like, this isn't the formidable big SEC that we're used to. So if Georgia just kind of cakewalks through this, I don't know that. I mean, I know you can't change who's put in front of you. You can't play anybody else who's been on your schedule. But at the same time, if we're comparing some of these and what it took to get there, outside of them being the back-to-back national champs, I mean, if I'm looking at it just from schedule perspective, I got to say, they might need to be pushed to 5. I don't know
if they're undefeated, they're in.
Well,
if they're undefeated, they're in. But if you have, like, I mean, let's just look at it from these interconference matchups. FSU, LSU, the ACC school won. Texas, Alabama, the Big 12 school won. So you're starting to see these outer conference matchups not go in the SEC's favor.
Yeah.
So if that SEC champion has 1 loss, I think it's the nail in the coffin, as long as these other conferences run the table.
Now look, God forbid, I'm gonna put this out here because we talk all college football. God forbid you guys slip up in one of those places. Do you still get that consideration, or does it matter where you slip up? Like if you slip up regular season, still win the Big Ten championship, I think you're still in. But if you lose in the Big Ten championship but go win out everywhere else, what does that still put you guys in there?
Here's the thing, though. If we lose in the regular season, we're not making the Big Ten title game.
Ah, right.
Because you look at it, unless we lost to Purdue and beat Penn State, Maryland, Ohio State, because all 3 of those are in our division.
Yep.
Ohio State's currently undefeated in the division. So you'd have to lose to Purdue and knock the other 3 off to still be able to make the Big Ten title game. And even then, that loss to Purdue might be the nail in our coffin. So
right.
There's so many teams that are so good this year. You just have to not slip up. If you're Michigan, if you're Georgia, if you're Ohio State, if you're Alabama, can make the argument after beating Georgia, but I still don't like the loss to Texas, pushing them out, especially if Oklahoma's undefeated, who beat Texas potentially twice, who beat Alabama. So, yeah, to me, if I really like FSU to potentially make the playoff this year. They're right now, they're my 5. Oklahoma's my 6.
They're my 4, Missouri.
Yeah. Now that's with 2 Big Ten teams being in the top 4. That would push one out. Florida State, as long as they handle their business, I feel like they will get in. So, and it's going to be nice to see, I mean, potentially a Washington or an Oregon get in, a team that hasn't been in a while. An FSU get in, a team that hasn't been in a while.
Right.
It's going to be nice to see some change here.
Yes. See, Sean actually does. Look, hey, this is just ACC bias, buddy. All right, don't get it twisted. If we take you out, you're out of here. All right.
See, at least I have you eventually getting in. That's the way it's going.
No, so let me ask this though. You look at the FSUs, and shout out to Misador being here. We talked about the Big Ten and how that one loss could potentially change things. What if FSU falls? What if they do get beat? What if they get beat either before or in the ACC championship? Is that it? I mean, their strength of schedule is pretty tough, but
I was going to say FSU is one of the teams that, depending on who they lose to, you could argue still getting in with a one-loss FSU.
Right. Not if they lose to Wake, though.
Not if they lose to Wake. They're going to have to lose, arguably, to you guys.
Yeah. Oof. They don't deserve to be in the top 8. Good gracious, Misador.
If they lose this game, you can make that argument.
Oh.
But I don't think they'll lose this game. No. I think they'll handle business.
Let's pump our brakes, Alex, because we didn't think certain teams were going to lose last week.
Yeah.
And now we're here. All right.
Very true.
Still proud. I'm still proud. Oh, God. Yo, I got real quick. I was driving this week, and I'm just sitting here, and I got my hat, and I'm like, you know what? I'm still going to wear it. I'm still going to wear it. And I swear, it was like 3 or 4 times where I'd come up behind somebody, and they'd have that UVA emblem on. Now, mind you, we're in Northern Virginia, so that's not too surprising. Yeah. But it was like a little stick in the craw, like, oh.
Yeah.
But yeah, so could UNC, I mean, talk about it. We got the one loss, albeit an awful loss. But if we went out, could we potentially get that nod? Could we, if we beat FSU, and obviously a little bit more chaos would have to happen, but what are the chances of us realistically getting in there?
It depends on these other top conference teams, because that loss to Virginia could be that nail in the coffin for you guys.
Yep.
But beating, say, Florida State's undefeated till you guys play them, you're still going to be high up in the rankings before that game. If you beat them, one-loss conference champion, you're going to be in that same spot as like the Alabama, if they win the SEC kind of thing, where it's going to come down to just how the other conferences did.
Right. Yeah, strength schedule, all those things. Not sure if Johnny Wilson plays or not. That's going to be huge. And, hey, glad you're here at Misador. Those are early CFP predictions. So, to recap, you said you have – do your 4 again?
I have Washington 4, Ohio State 3, Michigan 2, Georgia 1.
Okay. And for me, I had who did I have? I have FSU 4, Georgia 3, OU 2, and Michigan 1. These are our first projections, our predictions coming in. The CFP rankings come out Tuesday, right?
Tuesday, yeah. Ooh, right? I'm pretty sure right before we go live.
Let's go. Cannot wait. So stay tuned for that. See that, Misador? I say something nice. Oh, and some top 5 nice in basketball. So that's why. That's why y'all losing the rest of your games. Get out of here, man. I said if UNC and Michigan were both to be in playoffs, that would be far too much blue going on. Right? Look, Michigan. Look. I'm be honest. Michigan would I think they'd crush us unless they had Chris Webber, because he has.
Yeah. I had to let you have that one. Yeah.
That's all I got right now. That's all I got.